medicine for their heart. Too little didn't help. Too much, same symptoms came back. So it was like a U-curve.
Ready to start? So we talked about cannabis last time, so I figured I'd do the Materia Medica because it is one of the monographs in the Materia Medica Per project. And it's interesting. There's a discussion in the literature whether cannabis indica and cannabis sativa are separate species, the same species. It might just have to do with different climate conditions. Indica is from India, Hindu Kush, it's a smaller plant. Sativa is a bigger plant, more moderate temperate climate. So in homeopathy, basically, the symptoms are close enough together, and some homeopaths have substituted one for the other, and the results are the same. So basically, for this sake of this monograph, the symptoms have been combined. So let's talk about the Materia Medica Per project. This all started because Dr. Singh was giving courses, and he decided, well, what, I've given all these courses on different diseases and this and that. What's the next level? What can we teach next? And the idea was, well, if we start learning about smaller remedies, that would be a good thing. So we started that in 2005, and it became the Materia Medica Per project. And basically what we're doing is updating the Materia Medica and the repertory. And this is actually a continuation of the work that was started by Hahnemann, who died in 1843. He first published Materia Medica Pura, which is more acute remedies. And then he had this whole theory of chronic disease, and he published chronic diseases. And some of the remedies are in both books. Okay? And those are the anti-psoric remedies in chronic diseases. Most of them are anti-psoric. Allen, his work, Allen's Encyclopedia, 12 volumes, was finished in 1879. So what they basically did is he looked at all the provings that were available at the time and published a monograph on each remedy available at that time. Herring took that information and then added clinical symptoms and changed the gradations and added stuff to the repertory. But that work ended in 1891. So basically, since the late 1800s, the Materia Medica has not been updated. Everyone just refers back to these texts, but things that we've learned from toxicology, from case reports, from new provings have not been incorporated into the homeopathic Materia Medica or the repertory. His students, I think, continued after him. Yeah. I think he almost went blind doing this because that was before the day of computer. You think about it, 10-volume set with before a computer. So we have to incorporate this from the literature. But the problem is that most of the literature was published in the late 1800s, early 1900s. It's not easily accessible. And there's actually gigabytes of this literature. And now Google and others have been digitizing it. Right now I have, from like Hothy Trust, from other sources, I have about, these are all the journals. It's about, I think it's 20 gigs. And Andre right now has like 50 gigabytes of old journals. So and none of that has been basically indexed or anything. So what we're doing now, the first step is we're going through all those only good journals, reliable journals, and there's lots of them from those days. There are hundreds of journals. And we're indexing. So people are reading through a journal and then saying, oh, here's a case of Calibichromicum. Well, let me make a reference for that. And you go on to the next. And sciatica. Okay, I'll say, oh, here are all the remedies for sciatica in some cases. So we're indexing all of that. That's the first step. And then we can use that to incorporate into the Materia Medica and then in the repertory. Okay. So a lot of data there.
What's going on? I mean, I don't want to know in depth, but if he's incorporating this, what repertory are we incorporating this into?
MIC repertory.
Okay, so but we still don't have access to give people updates with the programs that they're currently selling. That's
Roger Van Zenvoort.
I know that.
Because he's basically ruined the repertory. I don't know if you understand, but you understand. I mean, every rubric has 500 remedies, and they're all in bold underline. He's ruined the repertory. So what we're doing is we're taking a more conservative, older version, complete 4.5, and we're making additions that are reliable. And believe me, this is the repertoire I use every day.
But is that his book?
And this is the repertoire Andre uses. It's incredible, but it's not available. If you bought the program back in the day, we had access to 4.5 complete repertory, but now it's not available anymore. And Roger Van Zandt won't allow it to be sold because he knows once people start getting that repertory with Andre's editions, no one's going to buy his repertory. It's a purely proprietary reason that he's not.
Why is he the one that decides?
He owns it. He owns the copyright.
Because his
McRepertory is a company, now it's Synergy. They own the software that runs that database. He owns the database. He owns that database, that version of that database. Now, what I've done with students, like what Lisa does now, I say use Robin Murphy's repertory. Robin Murphy's repertory is very close to the repertory you use, about as close as you can get. But the problem is he rearranged it. He made it alphabetical instead of by, top head to toe. But if you can get beyond that, it's very close to what we use. Very close.
So
But is that in the
synthesis versus like the one
Synthesis, Frederick Schroens, we had him here. He's much more conservative about additions. And I think he understands the problem with the complete repertory, and that's why he's but he doesn't even want to add Andre's stuff. Andre's been after him for 10 years to add it. And we once had a discussion about it when we had him here, and he almost strangled me. Just to bring it up, he got, it's like it was a very emotional issue. So I'm like, okay. No, he didn't really strangle me, but it was, he's very conservative, and I think the synthesis repertory is a conservative, reliable repertory still. Complete repertory 2016.
That's what I have on mine.
It should be filed back there.
I try to repertorize, like if I put 5 symptoms and then I'm trying to look for an acute remedy, there'll be like 10 remedies that are all
Bold, underline.
Bold underline for all of the.
Don't use it. Use Murphy's repertory. Lisa can show you how to use it. Yeah. Yeah.
Because otherwise I default to Cann-s on there.
And the problem with Kent, you're driving a Model T Ford. So much has been added since Kent.
Yeah.
That was from early 1900s. It's like, some Indian homeopaths just use Kent, but it's like practicing homeopathy with your hands tied behind your back and your foot tied up, going like this. You can do it. It's not real comfortable.
I have a question. Robin Murphy, you're saying use it because it's good, but what about Andre's changes?
Well, they're not in there, but it's what we have to do for the students, for the new people. We have to find a repertory that's reliable, that has reliable information, that's not bloated like the complete 2016 or 17. But that isn't Kent's repertory. We need something in between.
And you're saying Robin Murphy is what they can use?
Of the repertories that are available at a reasonable price, that's the one you can get. And synthesis isn't bad. I mean, I'm going to check out the synthesis app. I mean, the synthesis repertory, I use that sometimes when I don't have another repertory. The one in Radar, synthesis.
So why can't
it's okay.
Radar incorporate Andre's changes? What happened with Cann-i? Okay, that's another political battle.
Like I said, I mentioned it. Frederick Schroens is the one in charge of synthesis repertory. And like I mentioned, you bring up Andre's name and his blood pressure goes up and he comes apoplectic.
So he won't tell you why? Is that the problem?
The problem is he wants to verify every addition himself. We have a team of 50 people. We've done 50,000 additions. It will take him till the cows come home 50 times before he gets that work done. So it will never be in the synthesis repertory. That's my take on it.
So is there another way to access information from the MMPP?
It's going to be available. The monographs are going to be available on McRepertory and ReferenceWorks soon, this year, for everybody. You can buy it. You can buy it. Because a lot of work has been done. I'll tell you, I've done 5 or 6 of these monographs now. It's hundreds of hours of work to produce one. Like someone did this Cannabis monograph. So basically what you do is you review the world's literature, every case that's in the index, every reference in ReferenceWorks, in Opus, every case, every Materia Medica passage, and you put all the reliable information in a Materia Medica, you form a genius, and you collect cases. And here, they've collected, we'll go over some of these cases.
So how do you access that? It's going to be in...
I just told you, in ReferenceWorks, 77 cases.
But if it's in the monograph, if you were searching for a symptom, would you search?
What symptom are you searching for? If it's on reference works, it's just like reference. It'll be part of reference works. Whatever you're searching for, it will show up as part of reference
You're
works.
saying that these monographs will be sold as part of reference works.
Right. There'll be a package of reference works. You get this edition of the MMPP, and it'll be updated every year or two. Because right now there's about 150 monographs that have been done.
Okay, so the monographs will be incorporated as part of the searchable literature for the symptom, but it won't necessarily have the symptoms added to the repertoire itself.
Well, the first step is to index the journals. Then you have a lot more cases that are in the literature that never incorporated into the Materia Medica. Then when you do a monograph, you look at all those references, you put them into your monograph, you build the monograph, and then once you're done with your monograph and you have all your cases, you have all your Materia Medica, all your characteristic symptoms, you have a genius, you have a list of cases, then you go back to the complete repertory and you make additions. And I've probably made thousands of additions myself. For each remedy I've done is between 1,500 and 3,000 additions, which is your eyes probably fall out when you're doing that because that's a lot of work. But see here, this is a 129-page monograph. Andre recently did Conium. It took him a couple years, and it's like 500 pages.
You showed that to us last year.
But you know what? I've started using Conium more and more because of that monograph, and it's amazing. Conium is such an amazing remedy, and in the homeopathic literature, the current literature, it's totally underrepresented. And he's using it a lot now, too. Women, children, cancer, not cancer, you name it. Once you understand the genius of the remedy, you can use it so much.
But so is it realistic to skip these new repertory adjustments?
No.
So it would be more to go.
You'd have to look up every symptom on reference works and then import it. And no, it's not. You need a repertory. You need a reliable repertory. And right now, Murphy's, for people who can't access the complete 4.5, the three of us can access complete 4.5. We bought it when it was still being sold, and we can access his editions.
See, the problem is it's his book. The 4.5 is his book.
Well, he has a copyright. He has a copyright.
He has a copyright on his book. So this is where I asked specifically, so, well, it's a book that was updated. Why can't we still get that book? Because it was his book. Okay, was it originally from Kent? Did he started up?
Everything started from Cann, pretty much.
Okay, so
Synthesis started from Cann, complete started from Cann. Everyone's starting Cann.
Purchase it for him because he's the one who created that, you know, update and everything else. But the book that he created that Andre was making his changes on top of, he hasn't given Andre permission to disseminate that book, and he doesn't want to. He was, but now he doesn't. Because basically, if it was between buying the complete repertory that he's now updating and the one that Andre's been updating, I mean, I don't think that Andre would have any problem with him selling Andre's updates, but
No, he has a problem.
My opinion, it's ego.
He has a problem with that.
My opinion is it's an ego problem. So,
like, let's take some remedies.
Well, this is the problem when you have someone who is a homeopathic practitioner and then they devote their life to developing the repertory, and that's all they do, and that's how they earn their income, and something's threatening that, what are you going to do? You're going to say, okay, I just won't have any income anymore. No. So.
And there's no other avenue that Andre's able to go through.
get them off of it.
Well, one of the things on the table is to create our own repertory, but then you have to get the rights to an original repertory like Cann-s or maybe Coonsley, but it's difficult. Like Coonsley, I think they were looking to get Coonsley and then make additions to Coonsley, but no one knows who has a copyright on it. It's difficult to find this out because it's like an old repertory. It's, you know, maybe someone died. You know, it's complicated.
Beyond a certain amount of years, I think the Library of Congress should be able to tell you if there's a book that's copyrighted. If it's a book.
Andre has looked into, and other people like Kim Ali have looked into this. Believe me, they're very bright people. They know, but you're dealing with copyright law because Synergy has to follow copyright law because, I mean, all their material is copyrighted. So if they just do away with copyright, you know, that their own material is copyrighted too. It's like, what kind of a precedent are they setting? So they have to follow copyright law. I mean, that's legally,
So
otherwise they can be
assuming that
sued.
they bought the copyright for all the books that they're using.
Absolutely.
So then if they bought the copyright, then unless they give up that copyright, you can't use it.
Exactly. So that's the thing. It's complicated. And some older books, well, who has the copyright? Who knows? I mean, it's difficult. It's complicated. But they're working on it. And Murphy's for now. Murphy's is probably as good as we're going to get.
Sorry about that, guys. Because, you know, in class they do, you know, when they have to repertoire something.
Well, starting next trimester.
It's not in that rubric.
Starting next trimester. Well, but this is a good lesson. And this comes up in class occasionally. People are repertorizing now in class. Oh, it's not in my repertoire. Well, that's why you don't rely on the repertoire. You rely on the materia medica to make your final determination. So we shouldn't be relying just on the repertoire. The repertoire, I don't care how much effort you put into it, it's always incomplete. It will never be complete. You have to go back to the materia medica to make your final decision. That's why you have to. If you miss that step, you're not going to get the results you could get.
Really emphasizes that.
He does it. He doesn't just emphasize it. That's what he does. And I can tell you from experience, if you skip that step, you get less results.
I'd like to complain though, because I've tried to use reference works. I have a horrible time with reference works. Actually, the search engine for Radar's Encyclopedia Homeopathica, you search for something, it's so much easier to find it, it's more forgiving. Because if you don't put the word in exactly how many spaces apart the two words you're looking for, like if it's in a sentence, or if you say it in a different way, in a different...
So, but then you're talking about, it's just a matter of how do you query the database.
That's right.
It's all in the query.
It doesn't, but
and if you see Andre, when he works, the way he queries is very interesting. I mean, sometimes he'll use a single word, and he knows what remedy. I'm looking at this remedy and this remedy. Because then you do a single word, like prostate, you get 800 remedies.
Right.
So, but he knows, I'm going to look at digitalis, and I'm going to look at staph segrea.
So I'm not doing it right. I'm not saying I don't have much to learn too, but
Yeah.
I have a terrible problem with that.
Yeah. Well, we should have Kim Aaliyah back and show us how to search reference works. Kim would do that.
Well, at the time he wasn't working with reference works.
He is now.
Okay. Well, he's the one to do the class. We didn't back.
And the final goal, so we want to gather, index everything, put it in the materia medica, improve the repertory, and the final goal is to improve accuracy of prescribing. Like Hahnemann said, and I had credit control with this, he helped find this quote for me because I was like, I don't know where this is. I know Hahnemann said it, but I don't remember where. In paragraph 145, Hahnemann says in the Organon, of course, only a very extensive stock of medicines whose pure effects in altering human health are precisely known can enable us to find a suitable analog and artificial curative disease-producing power for every one of the innumerable disease states in nature, for every chronic illness in the world. And in the footnote, so you have to treat the full breadth of chronic disease that's dynamic, you have to have a good supply of remedies. The 13 or 15 or 24 polycrests are not going to do it. The 12 Susur salts are not going to do it. You need a full array of remedies, and those in practice for a long time can verify this. You need that full array. And then he says, in the beginning, some 40 years ago, this is the footnote to 45, I was the only one for whom proving pure powers of medicines was the most important occupation. Since that time, I've helped a few young men, today it would be young men and women, who have made tests on themselves and whose observations I've examined critically. And since then, some valid work in this field has been done by a few others. It's interesting, when Hahnemann did provings, he would give the patient the remedy, they'd come back with symptoms, and then he'd query them like he was taking a history. Okay, well, you had a headache. What made it better? What made it worse? What was the sensation? He would do a history on the patient. And that's why his provings are the best, right? That's what he used to do. But what will we not be able to achieve in therapy throughout the endless fields of disease when numbers of careful and reliable observers will have earned the merit of enriching this only true materia medica by careful self-provings? The healing art will then approach the mathematical sciences in certainty. And that's why your sulfur case was so beautiful, because everyone knew that was sulfur. A warm-blooded patient, aversion to eggs, uncover the feet. But imagine when we know that much about 500 different remedies that we can prescribe like that. It's just going to be like, oh, that's obvious Conian case, obvious Kali bichromicum case, obvious sulfur case, obvious High-Potency case, right? This is what Hahnemann was talking about. So what genius. 200 years ago, he foresaw this. I mean, what genius.
says don't rely on the respiratory back material.
Do you know where?
I can see it in my mind, but I can't remember.
Okay, I have
I'll
the.
find it for you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I know in practice when I'm rushing, if I'm just relying on the repertorization, I don't get the same results as when I actually go back and verify with the materia medica. It is an extra step. You have to go to reference works and do some searching. But
Are you saying you have to do that every time you need to before you can choose a remedy? Because in this case, we
no,
didn't have to do that.
not always. But if it's between, it could be this, you're not sure, that's where you go. And the more you do that, it's interesting. Lippe was probably one of the best prescribers ever. That's exactly what he did. He first started out, he had patients, and say, well, okay, I look at these few symptoms, and these are the possible remedies, and we read in the materia medica. He kept reading and reading and reading. He got better and better, so finally he could see 50 people a day. And I know some homeopath went around with him and said, well, what about all those patients we treated with cholera, yellow fever yesterday? Why don't we go back and see? He said, no, I'm not worried. I know they're all better. And the guy went back and verified. In fact, they were all better.
He did the DD in his head.
Because he knew the materia medica so well. And Joel, you've said this about other modern homeopaths. The ones who are the best, who get the best results, are the ones who know the materia medica. Not just the repertory, but the materia medica. They know their materia medica very well. They know how to differentiate different remedies based on this, that, whatever. He teaches a shortcut. Shortcut to a dead end. That's what I call it. And he actually, now he's changing his tune. He's presenting cases at his conferences of, oh, this is a sulfur case. This is a lycopodium case. This is a phosphorus case. It's not niobium sulfuricum, you know, an unproven remedy that's from the periodic table, and they decide it like that. And you know what? His students can't get the cases because they have no foundation, because they're just doing this, you know, oh, the sensation method or whatever. They can't solve the cases. Simple cases they can't solve. It just proves that, you know, that's not the way to do it. So for each remedy, a monograph. There's an introduction. You'll see the one in cannabis. You talk about what is the substance, what is the plant. Maybe you have some pictures. You talk about historical usage. It's very interesting. When you go to the old eclectic literature, a lot of the indications that they use things for are still the indications we use them for today. Those guys were pretty good observers. It's pretty interesting. Then you list all the characteristic symptoms based on provings, intoxications, and clinical experience, and then all the cases. We're only using reliable primary source material, and modern sources are used only if not speculative. There has to be a clear result, one remedy, and, you know, good follow-up. Otherwise, we don't use it. And interesting, we do use some of Sankland's cases because they're good, clear cases, but not many of them are like that. For each remedy, a genius or summary. At the end, once you've done the monograph, the last thing you do is you look at all the literature and you create a genius. And oftentimes, well, I would say basically you're the first person to really see that. It's like, these are the main symptoms of the remedy. Look at all the cases. These are the symptoms that keep coming up. Look in the materia medica. These are second, third degree symptoms in the repertoire. And you create a genius. And that's the most fun thing about doing a monograph, is you really learn, and you learn how do you get Andre calls them the fingerprint. It's like, oh, do you want to prescribe this remedy? You think of cal-carb, you think of sweating on the head, you think of craving eggs, you think of sulfur, you think of uncovering the feet and aversion to eggs. Well, how do we come up with those symptoms? By clinical experience. You see case after case after case, and those are important symptoms you know from clinical experience. Well, by doing this monograph, when you come up with a genius, that's what you're doing for each remedy. You're coming up with those sorts of things, like, okay, you see the remedy, it comes up in your repertorization. Well, is it that remedy? Like conium. And Andre said, well, is it chilly? The patient is chilly. You know, they're chilly, worse cold, but they're worse with the sun. And they crave sour. And there's a certain, you know, like fingerprint symptoms that you need, and then you can prescribe the remedy. This is what we're coming up with. Over 50,000 additions to the repertory. And there's different types of additions. Sometimes you add a remedy to a rubric. Sometimes you change the grading of the remedy in a rubric, because if you have just one case of a cure with that symptom, you can, it's a 1. If you have 2 or more, you can raise it to a 2. If you have multiple, then you can raise it to a 3. And if it's really common, you know, bold underline 4. Unfortunately, and I don't know why, in the complete, everything is bold underline. Every remedy is bold underline. It's like, where did he get that from? Total inflation. We talk about grade inflation for teachers, but you know, there you have grade inflation with remedies. Not good. Because then you can't, when all the trees are tall trees, how do you sort out the tallest tree, the best tree? It's like hard to, you know, it's not good.
But there is confusion too, because Ramona had, I mean, I didn't know really verbally how to address the problem, because she was like, you look at a rubric, there's some that are graded 3, some remedies graded 2, some are 1. And in her mind, if it's graded at 2, she doesn't look at the 1s. If there's something there too. If there's remedies graded at 3, she doesn't look at the 2s.
Well, when you start out, that's what you do, because it's doing homeopathy is like drinking from a fire hose. So not everyone can drink from a fire hose. So what do? You look at the bold remedies first. And if you have a really characteristic symptom, that's what I tell students to do. You look at the bold remedies first, and you know, your patient is worse 3 to 5. Well, you know, look at sepia, or worse 3 o'clock. You look at the bold remedies first.
Mm-hmm. But I wasn't sure how.
But you might, the more you practice, you find even the first degree remedies could be the remedy if it fits the overall case.
I was trying to, you know, the problem is me and how to address. I hadn't had that addressed before, because I just took it for granted from people teaching me, you know, that any remedy that's in that rubric could be the remedy, whether it's a grade 3 or grade 1. And on topping that all up, if it's a small rubric, it could be a remedy that's not in that rubric.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
you know, because it's a tool. It's not a.
But that's why you go to the Materia Medica to verify.
If you can.
I had an interesting case. I think I've told you guys about this case. I mean, it's like, how do you get to these small remedies? I had a patient who, I've been treating her for a long time. She was on sulfur MM, I think. MM plus 1 hour or something. I don't know. High-Potency. And she was doing well. And then she came up with this weird symptom. She said, I can't get near the desk. I feel like it's pointing me in the eye. Can't find it in the repertory. I looked it up, like sticking eye, sharp objects, whatever. One remedy had it. Lacphalinum. Lacphalinum was the only remedy that had, like, sharp objects seemed to be poking the person in the eye. Gave that remedy, and then I looked at her other symptoms in the Materia Medica of lacphalinum, and it fit her case, and that symptom went away, and she got better. She had a sore throat, other symptoms went away. So that, I mean, sometimes you have to go from one very peculiar symptom right to the Materia Medica, and you can cure your patient.
So okay, so if I was to go to reference works, just tell me here. And I was to say, find something. What would I type in here? So I feel
what do you
like
want to find?
A sharp object is poking me in the eye. I can't go near the desk. Okay.
Would you look under
No,
my
I need help.
Yeah, I think I've added it as a rubric.
Okay.
Sharp.
Sharp, okay. In the same sentence.
Well, what it is querying a database is what it is. And how to learn how to do it takes a lot of savvy. Andre is very good with it. He does it very fast. But believe me, I watch him sometimes, and I'm getting better at it. It's like my mind is going like, and my steam's coming out of my ears. He does it so fast. Sharp object.
Sharp object. And it's what remedy? Black?
See, it's not there.
It's not there, exactly.
So you have to, how you search.
No, I have black double floor.
No, it's lacphalinum.
No, I have black acidum and black D, so that's cow's milk.
Defloratum. Yeah, skim milk.
Skim milk. So, no, I want to learn how to use this better, but how can I teach the students how to use it when I don't use it? Because I get so frustrated using it.
Here we go. I looked up pointed eye. And this is from?
Pointed, one space is one word apart, 2 spaces in the same.
From Clark. Clark is a reliable Materia Medica. He basically took from other people. Mental illusion that the corners of furniture or any pointed object near her were about to run into the eyes. The symptom is purely mental. The objects do not appear to her sight to be too close. So it's not that they're too close. It's just that it pokes in the eye. And if you look at, basically we could refine this and find a better search that would narrow it down. But if you look at all these others, none of them apply. It's pointed, but it's not, if you look at the context, it doesn't work.
So pointed and eye.
That's the only remedy that has a symptom that I could find. And I think it was added to the repertory.
Okay, you can, okay.
Delusions, pointed.
But you can ask it to look for two items at once. So pointed eye would be one, and then you could put something else in there with it, maybe desk or I think there's another way to put something else in there. There's two ways to do that. So you actually you're making the rubric with the remedies based upon your searches, as opposed to. And I apologize for not being good at this.
I didn't realize you could take that and put it into your representation.
Yes.
There's a way of exporting it. I never do that, but
Yes, you can do that.
the problem is it's not reliable because you say pointed objects and eye, and they'll say pointed objects don't affect the eye, and that'll be included. So it's not useful. Bob, can you take this call? Slide the thing. It's Abdullah. Slide it to the right. Yeah, there you go. And answer it.
Oh my. Thank you.
I'm sure there's something with the broadcast. Yeah, I see. I think it was added to the repertory, but I see I can't even find it in the repertory. So I have to search for sharp. Delusions word sharp.
Well, if you know, I know how to do it easily.
Well, tell me. Why are you asking me if you know how to do it easily?
I didn't ask you this.
Okay.
Jeez. So it's lack what?
Falinum.
Okay, so you go under search, and under remedies and words, you put lack-f, and then you just hit search, and it gives you all the rubrics that it's in. So I have, it's not in that many, so there's 29 for I. Then I look at the 29 that it has in this. And then you do the clipboard, which is search, and you do the clipboard, and then.
Yeah, I can't find it in the repertory.
Okay.
But see, certain symptoms are just not in the repertory. They're just not represented in the repertory. You can make an addition, but and I think it is added, but to find
Added is what? Under I?
Here it's actually under fear of sharp-pointed things like falinum, but that doesn't tell you the whole. See how the repertory is not complete.
Fear of pins sharp-pointed.
Yes, fear of sharp things.
And then it's like pointed at the eye. Let's see.
Red button if you're done. Or he has a question?
I had a question. Like he was just saying that
It should be under my delusions.
if somebody has like
Hey, Abdullah.
a question like that, would it be better just to have them do like a big page question
It's
first
not in here at all.
before
Not
wasting all that
under
time in the office
so if I
visit
look
itself?
under-
What's his
I can ask it
question?
to search the other.
What's the question again? I didn't quite understand.
Hey, Abdullah, you want to repeat it for Tim? He's right here.
Search.
And actually, are you on the computer? Are you on the computer?
I am. I've been writing on the voice notes.
I'll unmute you. Why don't you talk to the group? Talk to the group through the computer.
Okay. I'm gonna hang up.
Okay. Okay.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Great. So my question is, as a new homeopath, experiencing case taking, there's going, like everyone mentioned, you need that space to be able to go back, look at the literature seriously, and you can't really have patients sit there for 6 to 8 hours because that's what Hong might take you. So would pre-screening patients in a method similar to your course back, Dr. Fior, where you have like an 8-page kind of summary where patients are asked, like, are you better with hot or cold, or are you better with the seashore or away from the seashore? So kind of questions that don't really have a lot of wiggle room, and it might give you a possibility of, okay, if they really like cold, then you're going to disregard some remedies. So you have like kind of a rubric already made before you see the patient, so you kind of hound in on the actual case when you're with the patient.
That's an excellent question, Abdullah. And that form that you're talking about is actually, we borrowed that from SCNM, from Stephen Messer at SCNM when Joel and I visited there. And they said we could use it. And that's why it's in there. And that's what they use there. They have this, all the physical generals and mental emotional symptoms. They have a questionnaire and people check off. And I think every practitioner, you have to find where you're most comfortable. I know Stephen Spates, he's a student who's been through national and he's a chiropractor and naturopath now. That's what he does. He has all his patients fill out a 50-page form, 40-page form, and then he only spends a little bit of time with people. I think everyone has to find what you're most comfortable with and what you can do in a reasonable amount of time and make a living. Can't forget that, because you got to pay the rent, right? And buy food. So, and for everyone, that's going to be a little different. Now, personally, I mean, I learned from Joel, and I've used those forms. I have that form available. I've used it a few times. I find when you have a form that's too long, people just check, oh yeah, ones for everything, you know, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, or 2 or 3. You know, they lose the capacity to focus on the form, and so it's like garbage in, garbage out. It's not so useful. But I mean, maybe you could make it work in your practice. I know at FCNM they use it, and then they just verify the few things. They go through and verify the few symptoms of physical generals that are important. I mean, you could do that. I find, and Joel, I kind of learned this trade from Joel, and this profession from Joel, this art from Joel, and we have a blank sheet of paper and we write down and we just ask questions, and I find that gives the patient the maximum latitude. Because if you have a form and you say, okay, what is your temperature, A through E, they're going to give you an answer A through E, or say, I don't know. If you ask them, well, what about your temperature, they might tell you something that's not A through E. They might give you something way off, and that might be the most important thing in the case. So you by just asking questions and having a blank slate, you get the most latitude, and you can be led in wherever the patient really needs to go to get better. And with a form, sometimes you can't ask every question on a form. It'd be 1,000 pages long. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. But just a clarification on that, from your personal experience or anybody else's out there that has kind of used the form, is it more of a lack of concentration, or is it a patient's ability to actually know what they're being asked? I mean, you know, garbage in, garbage out, for sure. But
no, it's a good form. It's a good form, but when I've used it, I've not found it helpful. But that's me. That's my experience. Your experience might be totally different. You might find a way of using that form or developing your own form, which is incredible. I know the homeopath here. He studied with Andre, studied with Sankarin, and all these people. Dale Dunn, and he uses a 40-page form, and he claims it really works for him. So, you know, it's individual. We don't, in our office, we have a one-page, you know, two-sided one-page history form that we use, and I refer to that a lot when I'm seeing patients. But a 40-page questionnaire, that's not my style. But doesn't mean that's not how you can do it. That's the beauty of homeopathy. It's flexible. You got to find a way to get the information, whatever works best for you.
Can I make a comment to this? Because in teaching, is it, you know, I get patients in the clinic that have come through the naturopathic side that have done a very complete form, where they ask all these questions. It's a huge difference between data collection and case taking. So that's the big differential. It's what comes, I find that's most useful is what comes from the patient spontaneous, from their consciousness. Now, there are patients that kind of are unconscious or insensitive or unobserving, but the questions that we need to ask to confirm something, so many times, you know, when we're underlying most, it comes from the patient spontaneous. I don't know if you find, Dr. Shepherd, but I find that the most reliable symptoms, the ones that go back to, the ones that I use as an elimination, the ones that I try to have, are the things that came from the patient spontaneously.
Yep.
In terms of their consciousness.
Yep.
And what's important now, sometimes you're 3 visits down the road when you're doing a follow-up with this patient until they tell you, oh yeah, I always have ankle pain. I'm always having ankle pain. They didn't tell you that the first 3 visits. And you've been working with remedies and not getting 100%, then you're taking something, you're getting some, and then you look at the 10 remedies that have ankle pain, and all of a sudden, boom, that remedy jumps up to the front. But you've had to wait the 3 visits, you know, to get that consciousness from the patient. It doesn't always come there. I've seen Andre drill people. I'm sure you have, if you sat in with any case taking, where he's doing 4 or 5 amazing amount of hours for patients that have already been treated, and you would think there's nothing left to get out of this patient. But he doesn't get it from a form.
We had a patient at one of the seminars that she has a spastic, like myoclonus, it's a congenital problem and spasms, and he took the case. It took 3 hours, 4 hours, and the patient was chilly. worst cold, loved the sun, loved exertion, worst 3 to 5 p.m., clenched her teeth at night, craved vinegar. Could it be a more clear case? But when she was describing her neck pain, she said, it's like a spasm, like this.
Like a knot?
Like this.
Okay.
So everyone was like, I mean, Lisa's wife, we were all like, sepia, 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 sepia. Everyone's consensus, sepia, we're going to give sepia. Cactus, because of that.
What's that?
It's clenching, the constricting.
Constricting. Ah.
And cactus has constricting typically in the heart, like an iron fist clenching the heart, but it can be constriction anywhere in the body. It's a general symptom. It starts off here, that's where we know it from, but it ends up being a general symptom of cactus. Yeah. And I've used it because of that. After that experience, I've used it when people say it's like this. You use it. It's useful. The remedy's useful.
How long did it take you to find that specific symptom? Practically speaking to a doula, you have to spend the time. You can't do it. How long did it take you to find that?
I think I did it in front of the patient, so it didn't take me that long. I was having a good day. You know, some days you have good days, some days you have bad days. Some days everything works, sometimes the computer crashes and you're getting buzzed all the time. And I think I found it within a few minutes, 5 minutes. But I just did the right search. But it's like, you have to be persistent. You keep looking and looking until you find, it's like, you know, you're like looking for your lost key in the grass, and you keep looking, or earring, you keep looking and looking until you find something shiny and gold, and then you know you got it. It's like that. It's like, aha, I got it. That aha.
The forms aren't just time saving. You're really doing the difficult cases.
I think if you're doing a large volume practice, if that's what you have to do, it could be useful and you could help a lot of people. But if, like our practice, we're basically a tertiary referral center where people have been to Mayo Clinic, Northwestern, University of Chicago, and then they got a prognosis they're going to be dead in 6 months, so then they decide to come see the homeopath, give it one last shot. I mean, with those people, yeah, something like that, not so useful.
In modern language, if I read it, we ask only open-ended questions, as opposed to closed-ended questions, which are yes or no, true and false, multiple choice type questions. Those are less useful.
Absolutely.
I remember that Ishwar Parikh, who studied, I guess, with Peter Schmidt's, that when they partitioned off India, and that when people were, you know, a line of 100 people that come to the homeopath for some help, you know, you don't have time to repertorize 100 people sitting there. Says if they come there and they're crying, you give them Balsam. If they come there and they're angry, you give them Staphylococcus aureus. You know, it just like real keynote prescribing. You know, but
yeah, it works
not,
70, 80% of the time.
It did.
That's pretty good.
Results. You got good results with people. But then again, in the most critical situations, the most obvious symptom, you know, but you're not always going to have that. You know, you have a chronic case, and you know, I call it a brain drain. It's what drains off the person's mind. You know, it comes to it spontaneously. It's so important. You know, it's where your case is. So I don't know.
Eric Udell, who's a naturopath in Phoenix, went, you know, was a student and now teacher. Used to be a teacher at SEM, and one of Jamie Oskin's teachers. He told me he did Homeopaths Without Borders, and he went to where the tsunami was, and you know, you have people lined up, line as far as you can see. But he said it was very simple. Oh, I'm afraid. Aconite, okay. Everyone in my family died. Ignatia. You know, it was so simple because there was no layers, no suppression, it's just like you get what you get. Aconite, Ignatia, Staph cigarette, you know, boom, boom, boom. And he said the results were fantastic. But here you have simple people. They've had a major tragedy, and the remedy is, it's like glaring you in the face. It's pretty obvious what they need. You know, there's none of this 4-hour case taking, you know, 5-hour case taking. No, it's like 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, on to the next one. That's the beauty of homeopathy. You can do that. We also create new rubrics and add the remedy. There's like 50 people, 10, 11 in North America. If anyone's interested in helping with one of the easy things to do is indexing. We give you a journal and you just index it, And there's a guideline, a spreadsheet that you use now so that you make the entries. It's easy. If you're interested, let me know, because the more people doing it, the quicker we'll get done with this. Because in 10 years, we've done 150 remedies, but there's 550 remedies. I mean, I don't think I'll live to the end of this. But you guys probably will. Looking at you guys. So 24 polycrests. These are the polycrests. So these are 13 remedies you learn in Homeopathy 3, and then probably most of these you've learned in Homeopathy 4 too. And Cannabis indicus was compared to belladonna, hyoscyamus, and then Cann-s. Here you see, so this is belladonna was one of the polycrests, and you see Cannabis is compared to belladonna, but it's also compared in parentheses here to hyoscyamus. There should be another parenthesis here. And then Cann-s, Cannabis is a big, the times I've used it in practice is for UTIs. And one of the characteristics is when people come in for a UTI and they have to kind of walk like this because they put pressure on the urethra, especially for women, it's too painful. They have to walk kind of. I had one case like that, and Cannabis was very useful. Also gonorrhea. So that's one of the main spheres of action. So that's why it was compared here to Cann-s.
Are you able to get it just from later on, or how do you get it?
Cann-s?
No.
Cannabis sativa, I think, is in the Dunham kit. But remember, sativa and indica are, so if you have a Dunham, you have it. And it's a controlled substance, so it's prescription only. So you have to have prescribing rights. We have it. I don't know where we get it. I don't think Baron only sells things that are in the HPUS. If they're not in the HPUS, like carcinosin's on the HPUS, they don't sell it.
What about Hahnemann Lab? I was told.
Hahnemann Lab has it, but you probably need a prescription. So let's go through the monograph. I'll kind of run through this quickly. It's a whole genus of plants, indigenous to Central and Asia. Cannabis comes from the Greek cannabis, which means hemp, the fiber that's used to make rope. And sativa means domesticated. And again, there's a debate. Is indica and sativa, and there's other species, are they different? Are they all the same? Some feel they're the same. In homeopathy, we can combine them. Basically, we combine them. There's some are cultivated for fiber. They have low THC and more cannabidiol, and then the ones that are more intoxicating have the high THC. Here's a Cannabis sativa, big tall plants, growing in your neighbor's backyard, especially if you're in California. Growing up against the fence. This is indica, so it's a smaller plant. This grows in more higher altitudes, kind of a smaller plant. It's been used for thousands of years to get high, religious purposes, even an analgesic anesthetic as an antidote to alcohol, which is interesting. But it's interesting, the effects of cannabis now in Colorado, they're finding, because it's legalized, more and more people are getting pulled over for DUI who are stoned on cannabis. So it does impair your reflexes and your weave and things like that. And behind alcohol, caffeine, and tobacco, it's the most popular recreational drug in the world. And it dates back to 2,000 years ago, mentioned in Indian texts. The soldiers used to, this is a guy looks like from Dragon Ball Z or something. The soldiers used to, in ancient times, used to take cannabis and then go into battle, and they called them hashishim, and that's where the word assassin came from, because it put them into a state where they were fearless and just wanted to kill things. Berridge, who's I believe was an ophthalmologist, he actually became an expert on cannabis. He proved it, Cannabis indicus, I believe. And it's interesting, he proved Cannabis indicus, and then he had a patient who needed indicus, but he only had sativa, so he gave sativa. It worked the same. So he said it exhilarates the spirits, causes cheerfulness. So there's two phases where you get the exhilaration euphoria stage, and then you get this depression phase after a while. Then brings on intoxication. And one of the big things about cannabis, lots of delusions. It has probably some of the most delusions of any remedy. The most rapturous ideas produces thirst and appetite. Everyone knows about the munchies, right? Increases the appetite, increases the thirst. And in fact, in conventional medicine, Marinol, which is THC, is used, or just medical marijuana is used to increase appetite, increase weight in people with AIDS, chemotherapy. I had a little girl had infantile anorexia, and they were giving her Marinol. She came in stoned all the time, so glassy eyes and kind of. But we gave her remedies, and she was able to get off the marijuana. But this is how it's used. Sexual desire, although it can cause impotence too. Then the sedative effects: spirits sink, vision darkens, madness, melancholy, fearfulness, dropsy, flatulency, and then decreased sexual desire. There are more than 400 different chemicals, some common ones, and then there's a unique family of terpeno-phenolic compounds called cannabinoids. And the cannabinoid receptors have been found in the brain, in basal ganglia, hippocampus, cerebrum, neocortex. There's actually an innate substance, I forget the name of it, Abdullah knows, not Abdullah, but Kareem. What? No, it's Kareem. Kareem. He showed me his lecture on cannabis. There's a substance, innate substance, which binds to the cannabinoid receptors. It's something with an A. I can't remember the name of the substance. So there's two that we know now, but it's very interesting. Having been in medicine a long time, now they know there's two receptors. In the future, they'll say, well, there's 1A and 1B, and then before you know it, there's like, it becomes much more complex. So right now, we know there's two receptors. THC binds to the CBD1 receptors, which are mostly in the brain, but some in the gut and elsewhere. And the CBD2 receptors, which cannabinol binds to, are more found like in the gut and other places, other organs, associated with the immune system. And then cannabidiol doesn't directly bind to either, but modulates the binding, supposedly. So this is the terpene, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 carbon unit. This is the terpene part, and this is the phenol part. And you see this is THC, delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, cannabidiol. There's two alls. This bond is broken. You get two hydroxyl groups. And cannabinol. I'm not sure how this one's different. Does anyone see the difference here? Oh, there's a separate ring here. There's two phenol rings here, two benzene rings, a second benzene ring here versus only one here, etc. There's lots of them. The main psychoactive is the THC, but it's the cannabidiol. It's not hallucinogenic, but it actually is anxiolytic and antipsychotic. And it's interesting because THC is propsychotic. So in the plant, it gives you a mixture, but now they're breeding plants which are higher and higher percentage, and people who are, every time they increase the percentage, now it's up to 20% THC in some of these plants, when they increase the percentage, more people who use it go psychotic. And I'll show you an article on that. With each increase in THC, the rate of psychosis goes up. This is from Forti, 2009. You look here, the longer you use it, so they looked at people who were psychotic, and they looked at like versus controls and what was the difference in terms of use of cannabis and how often, how long. And you see here people who used it over 5 years, double the rate of psychosis. Every day, 6 times the rate of psychosis.
Using it how? Just smoking it or taking it out?
There's lots of different ways. You can smoke it. You can ingest it. I'm not sure in this article. I could look at the article and see how they did it. Yeah, I don't know. It might be any way of ingestion. I don't know. I have to look at the article. But somehow they're getting the THC in their system.
You know how they define psychosis?
These are people that it was a retrospective study. So these are people who were defined as acute schizophrenia or psychosis. They were like defined. It was defined by a psychiatric professional, I believe.
Because I knew a lot of people that smoked a lot of weed growing up the way I did.
I have a lot of patients who had a psychotic break, and I remember in college there were people who would be normal, and all of a sudden something would happen. I remember one guy, he wanted to be a doctor, he was pre-med like me, and he got too high one night and had a weird vision, and he totally changed his life, didn't want to be a doctor anymore. He went into dentistry, which now he's probably mercury poisoned. Now he's probably mercury poisoned, so that wasn't such a good.
You don't have to worry about this one.
The cannabis wasn't helpful for him. And here they looked at if you compare people with 1% THC versus 18%, 12 to 18%, those who had the 12 to 18% THC marijuana were 6.8 times higher to get psychosis. So there's a definite link with psychosis. They're basically proving the cannabis. And you showed last week the hyperemesis syndrome, which is a symptom of cannabis as well, the emesis and such. Not as strong as with digitalis maybe, but, and then they want the hot showers. These are all the uses. First time ever I wrote a prescription for medical marijuana for a patient because he had a head injury, and I kind of regret it because the next time he came in the office, I mean, the medical marijuana I think is like really potent. I mean, the guy was just like, I'd ask him a question, he'd wake up and go, yeah, man. I mean, he was totally stoned. And I started, like, his mom, he brought his mom in, who also, they use it every day, 10, 15 bowls of marijuana a day, you know, smoking it. And because they have so many issues in life, right? And I was like, his mom, I think she might have some type of cancer or something. Maybe we should get her off smoking it. And he's like, oh, no, it's good for cancer. It's good for this. Like, couldn't argue with him, you know, but he was in like a stupor. I could see he was in a stupor. Not a good thing.
Do you think this is, I have a question, because if this is such a potent intoxicant, if you will, if somebody's taking it kind of regularly and they cut it back, I know that Jill in the homeopathic class, because she sees people that are coming into the ER like retching that they've been on this and they're trying to, they're either cutting it back or haven't been taking it.
Or it can be just from use of it, the cyclical vomiting syndrome from marijuana use.
Yes, the vomiting.
Cyclical vomiting syndrome, yeah.
Yeah, so, and then I have a patient that called me up with huge UTI symptoms. I gave her Nux, which took care of it, and it sounds like Nux is the one similar to the one for that retching spasmodic vomiting. People that, you know, just
cyclical vomiting syndrome, there's many remedies that you can use. I find those are patients are difficult to treat.
The only one.
Yeah.
I'm saying this showed up.
Literature that it affects it.
Excellent question. I'll ask our resident expert Kareem at the final next week and see what he says. He would know more than me.
I have one patient with no other risk
For, other than using marijuana. Well, if you think of it, people who use marijuana get the munchies, and what do you eat when you get the munchies? Whatever's there. So you eat junk, of course you're going to gain weight, and that's going to put you at risk of diabetes. But I don't know if there's any studies on that. We could look it up. We could do a PubMed search for cannabis use and type 2 diabetes. I bet it'd be interesting to see if that's been researched. I don't know.
So it's the THC that's the pro-psychotic, and it's the CBD that's kind of mellow. And
exactly. Exactly. And actually, it's interesting. Because people want to get high. You know, they've been breeding plants at higher THC levels. But now, it's interesting talking to Kareem about it. He said now people are realizing that that's not such a good thing, and they're trying to find plants with lower levels and more of a balance, so you get, you don't have such a risk of psychosis. To me, when I look at this list, and it's a growing list, and after my experience with that patient, he's like, oh no, it treats cancer. It doesn't cause cancer. And I was worried his mom had rectal cancer. It's like, yeah, you're smoking something. That's a risk factor.
What kind of cancer are they seeing mostly? I know that there's
probably lung cancer.
Bladder. What about bladder?
I would think the same as cigarettes. Cigarettes cause lung cancer, bladder cancer, esophageal cancer. I would think with cannabis it'd be similar if you're smoking it. Okay. But to me, like in dermatology, the new wonder drug, the panacea, is Botox. Cannabis is becoming like a panacea. But from a homeopathic perspective, yeah, it's only indicated when you have the characteristic symptoms, right? Hahnemann proved cannabis sativa. Later provings were done by Cannabis indicus by Berridge. And Herring's Guiding Symptoms and Allen's Encyclopedia separate out the two. Hahnemann wrote about cannabis sativa, we may employ the juice of hemp for curative purposes of much more importance in various diseases of the genital organs, UTIs, the genital, urethritis, of the chest, of the organs of the senses. Okay, so Hahnemann already, he nailed it. It was much more employed in Persian country inns in order, this is Hahnemann continued, in order to relieve the fatigue of pedestrian travelers, for which it is truly homeopathic. And here he's probably referring to Cannabis indicus. Norton wrote in 1852, I fear indeed that the European and Indian varieties of the plants are frequently confounded in the Hahnemannian proving. Berridge proved it in the late 1800s, was an expert. In 1871, he wrote in the Journal of Homeopathic Clinics, or a case you wanted to give cannabis indicus, but he said, oh, I want to see you do an experiment, see if there's a difference. You give cannabis sativa, patient responded wonderfully. So this is where we get that you can use one or the other, whichever one you have. And Cann even mentioned the resemblance. The amazing thing about Cann was Cann practiced at the homeopathic medical school in Chicago. He moved from elsewhere to come here. And they saw thousands of patients, and Cann was in charge of everything. So he had experienced like incredible experience, tens of thousands of patients he saw in his lifetime, or was related to, he was like overseeing other doctors doing, So he had incredible experience. And he said the resemblance of this remedy to cannabis indica is remarkable. He's talking about cannabis sativa, and has led to a belief that they are identical. The one has often been substituted for the other and has cured symptoms produced by the other. Their mental and urinary symptoms are very similar. Boger only talks about cannabis. He doesn't differentiate indica sativa. Fatek says when urinary and symptoms of acute gonorrhea are most marked, cannabis sativa should be used. For materia medica pura, what is done is all the additions have been made as if they're both are the same, and it's been made under cannabis indicus. And so the primary sphere is the mind, urogenital, head, eyes, chest, and extremities. So you all got a copy of the monograph? I mean, we can go through it, or I can just ask you if you have questions.
If there were cases that stood out to you, that would be great.
We can go over the genius, maybe. I made notes on some cases that were interesting. So it's a remedy with lots of delusions. The summary, when you have a remedy, it's 117 pages for the monograph. So the summary is about 10 pages.
And the summary's at the end? Before the cases?
It's at the beginning. Oh. The primary sphere, again, the mind, your gentle head, eyes, chest, extremities. Lots of ideas, lots of exaltation of spirits, gaiety. And one of the things is giggling. Giggling. If you have a person with delusional whatever and giggling, you have to think of cannabis. And I think we have it here under giggling. Yeah, cannabis. But maybe insanity with giggling? No, not there. But giggling, so there's a lot of giggling, laughing, laughing, laughing. So you think of it, if you see a patient who's always laughing for no reason, you think of it. Theorizing, loquacity, they have dromomania, they want to run. So you can think of it maybe an autistic kid. Laughing at trifles, oh that's it, that's what I was looking for. Laughing at trifles, so little things they'll laugh at.
How about a moderate?
It isn't in a moderate. See, it's all under cannabis indicus, but again, you could use either. And over trifles, laughing over trifles. So that's one way into the remedy. Maybe one of the thumbprints of the remedy is the laughing, the giggling. Think of one of the cartoon series on TV, Beavis and Butthead, they're always like, and they're probably always smoking. So that'd be a good example, like if you have to remember it, like you think of cannabis. Confusion. They can't fix the thoughts on one object, and especially they get confusion as far as let's see here. Time. I'll find that here.
That's the.
Where was it?
I can see my ages. Yeah.
Right there?
Mm-hmm.
Delusions, hundreds of different, all kinds. So we'll run with lots of delusions, a lot of delusions. What is a delusion? A delusion is there's objective reality, and you think something's true that's not. Okay? From the most beautiful to the most horrible, especially delusions of time and space. Time seems too long. A few seconds seem ages. Distances seem change. So it's change in time and distance. Like it's warping time, space continuum, like that. Parts of the body are enlarged. Delusions of harmony. Delusion to be somebody of high rank, to be almighty, to be duality, of duality. So you think of Veratrum, the person in the psych ward who's like, I'm Jesus, or I'm Jesus' right-hand man. I'm God's right-hand man. Come talk to me. I'll get something done for you, you know, like a Veratrum, but it could be cannabis as well. Depression, indifference. So this is the Fioric stage, and this is the second phase. Dullness, sadness, fear of insanity, vertigo, and they fall sideways. Hale said it's one of my favorite remedies in nervous vertigo, which comes on after mental excitement or remains after acute congestion of the brain. It has a peculiar symptom, constriction in the head as from an iron skull cap. Look at that, an iron skull cap. And headache in the sun, so it's a sun-sensitive remedy, so it could be similar to nature mirror. And it has periodicity like other remedies, every 8 days or every 4 days. Headache with flatulence. So again, it affects the GI tract and flatulence, passing upward or downward. Hemicrania, the attacks occur periodically every week or two, agonizing, rendering the patient delirious or unconscious, leaving them prostrated and nervous. Face is pale, head cool, noise and light aggravates. You think of Nux. They say are similar to CPS, Vigilia, Arsenicum, Zincum. And then a very peculiar symptom with the head pain, pain in the right temple as if opening and shutting, opening and shutting. It could have that symptom, opening and shutting, as if the scalp or the calvarium is opening and shutting, the skull is opening and shutting. Worse with noise. Feeling as if the top of the head was opening and shutting, opening and shutting. Separated from the body. Meningitis. And it has a lot of eye symptoms, especially opacity. People with, like, get herpes and then get opacities of the cornea or cataract. Berridge he proved cannabis and he used it a lot in patients with eye problems. He was a homeopathic ophthalmologist. And so he had a lot of experience using it for cannabis for different eye problems. Gonorrhea, ophthalmia, you know, babies are born through the birth canal and the mom's infected with gonorrhea, the baby gets, that's why they use the antibiotic drops in the eyes. And they get the green, thick drainage and go blind. Maculae, ulcers on the cornea, photophobia, lacrimation. Hale said, I've cured many cases of tinnitus. Sounds reverberate. And again, the distance. All sounds seem to be a distance. Even if it's close, it seems like it's at a distance. Even his own voice sounded way off. And again, the increased food appetite. It says, Taylor said, every article of food is palatable. Dryness, and it has dryness in the mouth, throat, and lips without thirst. So you think of pulsatilla. Grinding during sleep. A bit of trismus, you can't get even liquids in the mouth. Throat is parched with intense thirst for cold water. So it increases appetite and increases thirst, or it can decrease thirst. And dryness not ameliorated by drinking. So you think of nature mirror, you think of phosphorus. Ravenous hunger not decreased by eating enormously. Violent thirst. Violent stomach pain, sinking and weakness in the pit of the stomach. Writhing and agony, sensation of soreness in the renal area. So again, it can have GU, but also renal. With urging to urinate, bloody urine. Farrington said, in renal diseases, cannabis indica is indicated when uremia sets in, attended by severe headaches. So uremic headaches. You know where to find that, right? Head pain, general, uremia. And cannabis is there. So this is really sick people. So it's a good remedy for sick people. Urinary symptoms, lots of urinary symptoms. Urging to urinate with pressive pain, urging to urinate but cannot pass a drop. The urging continues after urination. Urinating frequently in a small quantity.
So
it doesn't have, like with Cann-s, the big thing would be burning with urination. Here it's like more urging.
So if somebody who's using medical marijuana has a symptom like that?
They could be proving it. Yeah, absolutely. And allopathically, they probably go to the ER and they give them an antibiotic. They give them Bactrim. The urine dribbles after the stream ceases, has to force out the last few drops with the hand, has to push. Urethral complaints, gonorrhea. And here you get some, in men, swelling of the prepuce, foreskin, with phimosis. So that phimosis is where the foreskin can't be retracted because it's swollen, and dark redness of the glands and prepuce, bright red spots on the glands. And Jar wrote, it may be said that it will cure any case of gonorrhea, though not always so rapidly. We should not, however, as Hartman advises in his therapeutics, change to Cann-s or some other remedy if the cure is not completed in 8 days. Nor should we allow ourselves to be deceived by the presence of such accessory phenomena as difficulty of urinating, phimosis, inguinal swellings, hematuria, inflammation of the glands, painful erections, and to be induced to employ some intercurrent remedy for the removal of these symptoms, because these are all symptoms of cannabis. All these symptoms yield to the use of cannabis. It is only when the discharge has become suppressed, either by accident or by artificial means, that cannabis seems to be powerless. So I don't know if it's it's more an acute remedy, maybe not one of the antipsychotic remedies or something. I don't know what he's saying here, but it's a psychotic remedy. So it's not antipsychotic, it's psychotic. But gleat, stinging, burning, smarting of the urethra during and after urination, bloody, burning, so it can be similar to Cann-s, drop by drop. And Nash emphasized high sensitivity to urethra to touch or pressure, and that's where people can't walk right. They have to walk with their legs apart because putting the legs together puts too much pressure on the urethra. The patient I had, she had MS and she had a cystitis, and that's how I got to the remedy. Gave her cannabis, took it right away. Interestingly, UTIs are pretty easy to treat homeopathically. But if the patient, my experience is, if the patient has had lots of antibiotics, you have to keep switching remedies. Like one remedy will take away one group of symptoms, and then it will flare up again, and then it'll be a new picture, and you have to use another. It's almost like for every antibiotic, you go through another layer. And then Guernsey's description is picturesque. When a patient walks very slowly with his legs stretched apart, cannot walk with his legs close together as it hurts his urethra, worse on motion, and use it for gonorrhea. Lippe said, cannabis is very similar to Cann-s in urethral problems. Same yellow discharge from the urethra. There seems to be more burning and smarting under cannabis, where there's more tenesmus under Cann-s. You know what tenesmus is, right? Painful contraction of the urethra. It could be their anal sphincter, could be or any sphincter. It could be up here, could be the urethra. It's like a constriction that's painful. Copperweiss said, in cases characterized by profuse discharge, cannabis is not indicated. Argentum is more useful. Also in simple urethritis, cystitis, nephritis, urinary troubles, very similar to Cann-s, the latter having more tenesmus. And with cannabis, there's more burning. Urethral caruncle. That's where the urethra has a little, like a granuloma, usually at the opening. Aphrodisiac, so all these symptoms, and then impotence, and then in Hahnemann's Materia Medica Pura, we see complaints of the lungs and heart. Hahnemann already talked about this. Cough, hard, dry, or with spitting blood, with a green, viscid expectoration. You think of like pulsatilla, although not with the blood spitting so much. Suffocating, has to be fanned, so desire to be fanned. Again, could be like pulsatilla, carboveg. Dyspnea and extreme agitation. Must sit up most of the time. Orthopnea. Has to stand by an open window. Leaning forward. That's another thing. Leaning forward. Asthma, better leaning forward. Stand by a window, leaning forward. There's actually a rubric. This was added. Respiration difficult. Bending forward.
Or sitting bent. Sitting forward. That's, yeah. Sitting bent forward.
Sitting bent forward. And there's another one with the open window too. It's not added here.
Is that two separate ones?
It might be.
like air.
Open air ameliorates. You see, cannabis is there. So they want the open air, like pulsatile, like carbo-veg. Humid asthma, tightness, asthma, can only breathe standing up. If you have the concomitant of spasmodic affections of the chest and abdomen accompanied by urinary troubles, here are the concomitant. You have urinary troubles and breathing problems. Guernsey said for pneumonia. Third stage of pneumonia, that of absorption, the lower part of either or both lungs. Difficult greenish expectoration with delirium. So they have greenish gleats, they have greenish expectoration from the lungs. Fever and vomiting of greenish bilious matter. Hartman even wrote, the most important remedy for inflammation of the heart is cannabis. So here we're talking about carditis. Recurrent blows or beats in both sides of the heart. Violent palpitations of the heart. So the heart rate increases, you get violent palpitations, and even it's been known to cause heart attacks. It's interesting. One of the guys I grew up with, I went to college, he didn't, he's into cleaning pools his whole life, but he heavily got into marijuana use. I mean, he was smoking every day. And I found out when he was like in his 30s, like mid-30s, he dropped dead. He was at a friend's house, probably imbibing, and probably had a heart attack, died. And these are side effects of cannabis. Violent palpitations can cause arrhythmias. Pop a plaque and you get a heart attack, you die. Or just from the arrhythmia, you can die. Rapid pulse. On exertion and stooping, a couple of violent blows at the heart as if it would fall out. This is another peculiar symptom, a sense of dropping around or in the region of the heart. See if you can find that. Chest dropping. Still here, under chest falling. Drops were falling as if from the heart. Cannabis. And indica and sativa, yeah. But again, you could use either. It's on the spinal cord. Opisthotonus. You know what opisthotonus is? When people get tetanus, that's one of the symptoms. They get the riser, smile from the clenching, and with seizures, you see that sometimes people will go back.
So they have it under the back bending. Back bending cervical
No,
region.
back opisthotonus.
Yeah,
Opisthotonus.
I drawn backward too.
And tetanic babies here, but cannabis is there, so it could be a tetanus remedy. The limbs are crampy, spasms, contractions, convulsions. A peculiar symptom, snapping or dislocation of the patella and going upstairs. Chill, chilliness, chill with shaking and thirst. Drowsiness, like my patient, medical marijuana, drowsy, walks around with his eyes closed. Hope he doesn't drive that way. He won't be around for long. Yawning, excessive sleepiness, dreamy attacks, all kinds of dreams, weakness, faint, weakness after miscarriage, loss of muscular power, catalepsy, people who just all suddenly fall over. Tetanus, numbness, anesthesia. Drops of water falling from single parts. So it can be the heart, but it can also be other parts. Anus, heart, head. And then the opening and shutting.
Also, tell has that, doesn't it?
What?
So the drops of water, you feel like they're splashed with water. How do you
Drops, what kind of drops?
sensation?
Trickling. Cannabis, see, trickling like drops. Cannabis. I don't see pulsatilla. We could look it up in the Mature Medica. The quality of pain is pinching, throbbing like a blow. So throbbing, think of the belladonna, like a blow, obtuse stitching, pressing from a blunt point. Violent symptoms. So here's the genius. Now this is shorter. It's only 2 pages. So can't really differentiate. The mind, of course, all the delusions. The brain, delusions, changes in perception of time, space, and the urogenital system. But it could be urethra, bladder, and even kidneys. Symptoms of the head, eyes, all the neonatal ophthalmia, you know, from the gonorrheal ophthalmia. vision, and the chest, the pneumonia, and the extremities, the spasms, the aposatness. Exalted spirits, laughing, giggling from the trifles, and then absent-mindedness, dreamy, taciturny, indifference. Thoughts are crowding, disconnected, memory is bad, can't finish a sentence. Could use that sometimes. I can't finish a sentence sometimes. Maybe I need a little marijuana, huh? A little cannabis. Feeling like things are not real and objects may seem strange. One patient I've been treating chronically who he had a bad experience when he was young with cannabis, and it caused this depersonalization, which he has to this day. And so he first self-medicated with stress with alcohol, and then the psychiatrist took him off the alcohol and put him on benzodiazepines, which he's addicted to now and has withdrawal symptoms from. But when he goes into a bad state, when he gets stressed, he goes into this depersonalization. That started with his use of marijuana. Feels like he's outside his body, like looking in. It's like it's not real. It's very distressing to him. I think so. Mind unreal.
It's unreal, and then there's like in the dream, but I don't know which you choose.
Probably under delusions, unreal.
Strange, yeah, unreal. Delusions, unreal.
Unreal, everything is unreal. See, cannabis, main remedy. In postpartum hemorrhage. Postpartum hemorrhage and nothing seems real. Think of cannabis. You almost have to be a homeopathic midwife or obstetrician to be able to use that, because that's a, someone has postpartum hemorrhage and they've got this, it's an acute situation. Allopathy, they're just going to drug them, give them antipsychotics or God knows what. But you need to give a remedy right then. It's like it's time to call the homeopath. Who knows? Occasionally get calls like that, but there's just, you need someone who there on site who can treat the patient. In Armatura Medica, no remedy is known to produce more delusions and visions, imaginations than cannabis. And the delusions are concerning space and time. Are pleasant, enjoyable in a high degree, but sometimes of a horrible character, anguish, and despair. That's what it was with the person that was going to be a doctor in school. He was right across the hall from me in the dorm. And I still remember his name. His name was John. And he had a bad trip, and it was like devils and demons, and it's like totally freaked him out. It's like he was a different person after that.
Years ago, though, I don't know, because they used to lace the cannabis with PCP. So you don't know, because I had a friend that freaked out because he got cannabis.
Well, this is the whole idea of having it illicit versus licit, legalized, because then hopefully it's more controlled. But now with the higher increased percentage of THC in it,
yeah,
more people are getting psychotic. It's not from the PCP, it's just from the high THC level. It's not balanced with the cannabidiol. I mean, nature created something that was more balanced, and our society is unbalanced, so we create, a plant that's more imbalanced and creates imbalances in us. Is it any wonder?
Colorado.
I don't know. They have all different names. I mean, you go into, I've seen, on TV, I've never been in one of these shops, these head shops or whatever, but they have, all different types of, all different types, and I guess you just have to know, or I guess they tell you. I don't know if it has to be on the package. I don't know that information. Burning, so a lot of genital symptoms, burning, smarting of the urethra with and after urination, drop by drop, bloody, urethral discharges, green, thick. And worse with touch. That's the thing. The urethra is worse with touch. Walks with legs apart. Gonorrhea, nymphomania, troublesome erections. Headaches, violent one-sided periodic headaches, the opening and shutting. Spasms of the chest, pneumonia. Dilation and contraction of the pupils. Opacity of the cornea, vascularity of the eyes. Ravenous appetite and thirst. Dryness of the mouth, throat, and eyes with thirst or without. Spasms, paralysis, catalepsy, numbness, anesthesia, opening and shutting, falling drops, violence. Okay, let's look at some cases. The first cases are all like gonorrhea cases, and they're like from the 1840s. That was like the first use reported. at least in the Western literature. I don't know about in other literature. That's the other thing, you know, most of these journals are all in English. What about other, you know, countries, other languages? You know, there's more, the repository of information there that, you know. For one or two of the monographs that I've done, there were articles that were printed in German, so then you have to get someone to translate it from German to English, and then you can use the information. So cases, this is GB 24. Of healthy constitution has been infected 8 days ago by unclean cohabitation from having relations. Lasting 2 days, burning while urination, stitches in the urethra while and without urination. Often but scanty urination, frequent painful erections, thin mucus discharge from the urethra. Inflammation of glands, pain, worse motion, cannabis, and patient got better. Here, case 2, yellowish discharge, stitching, burning, while and after micturition. Got 1 drop of tincture cannabis per.
So the frequency of antibiotic-resistant outbreak is really increasing quickly.
You know, antibiotics, the bugs have been around for billions of years. We've been around for thousands, millions of years. I mean, all that happens when you give an antibiotic is you select resistant organisms. You change the nature of the bugs, the biome, microbiome, and it becomes more resistant. That's all that you really do with an antibiotic. And the symptoms go down for a while, but you really cause suppression. And then they come back, you have a resistant bug, the original antibiotic doesn't work anymore. And eventually you run out of antibiotics. And that's happening right now.
So what other naturopathic modality can treat gonorrhea?
Well, we could probably do some cannabis tincture, a mixture. Or even same with like tinctures with essential oils, like you only use one if you are resistant to it as well. So you need to have a wide variety.
I would think some hydrotherapy could be useful.
Yeah, you do hydrotherapy.
That's always good for infection, ammonia.
Yeah.
You have high doses of garlic. Do you know about that?
Garlic is antimicrobial, but I think of garlic more for lung infections because when you exhale the allicins in the lungs. But it can be used in other infections as well.
You say high doses of garlic has the same antibiotic.
Yeah.
Antimicrobial effect.
Yeah, I don't know if it has an affinity to the genital urinary tract or not.
All
I
There are
think
certain
it's cheap
botanicals that
accesses.
do.
those approaches would then would be poisoning the bug.
Yeah, I don't know the mechanism.
Has anybody treated acute infectious urethritis with homeopathy? Like, has anybody ever come to you and said, hey, I know I have this, but I'm not going to get into that. Give me a remedy. Have you ever done that?
I have a friend from our church who, his son, they're from Austria, and they came here, and his son was experimenting, you could say, and he got urethritis, and probably non-gonococcal because it wasn't really pussy discharge. And basically, he came in asking for doxycycline. But I took his case; he was a perfect pulsatilla case, so I gave him pulsatilla, and I gave him a prescription for doxycycline. So I don't know what. I can't say, I don't have an STD clinic. If I had an STD clinic, I would probably get more experience, but.
No, we have lots of cases of discharge. Something else. You don't do it now.
No, we don't do the testing and stuff.
Yeah, culture.
We could. I mean, we have Quest Lab. We could, but it's like we don't get enough cases. I mean, I've gotten cultures before. I used to do more gynae stuff, and after a while, the stuff wears, gets out of date, and you have to throw it out anyway. So it's like if you don't use it, what's the point? And plus, you can just refer them to their gynae or their family doc.
I mean, sometimes they give them 48 hours if they're really strong. But it's the same thing with the urinary tract. We don't know which bug we're treating when we get results. Doesn't matter.
I had a patient diagnosed with syphilis. He had very interesting. He had an ulcer on his perineum that was painful. And this is all done by phone. He never even came in. And I'm like, yeah, you should get that looked at. So he had he went to a walk-in clinic and they did a screening test. They did PDRL, and I think it was positive. Or the first screening test is
RPR or the DDR?
RPR. They did the RPR, it was positive. They said you have gonorrhea, and we give you a shot of penicillin. And think he got it, and he was shocked. He went and told his wife, and his wife was like, "Oh, okay," which is an interesting response, I thought. But and then I said, something's odd here. It's usually syphilis has a painless chancre with induration, and he didn't have that. It was painful. It was like more like herpes, like a painful ulcer. And so he went. I said, go to an infectious disease specialist. He went to the infectious disease specialist. They said, yes, your case is very unusual. I don't think it's syphilis. But they did a fluorescent treponemal antibody absorbed, and it was positive again. And then they said, no, it is definitely syphilis. You have to, take more antibiotics. And sure, we gave him remedies too, but in a case like that, and then I know Rick Esger had a case of a patient came in. He treats a lot of people in the gay community, and they get a lot of sexually transmitted disease because they have a lot of contacts. You go to the places and you have multiple partners in a night. And the person came in with syphilis, and he was treating him homeopathically, and he got a visit from the health department, and they said, you realize this is a deadly disease. You made sure the patient got antibiotics, right? I mean, so the health department got involved. So you have to, you have to use common sense.
So our patient forgot me until I first treated him. Sweet is called cancer. So we have treated STDs successfully. Now, as far as even Andre made this point, Hahnemann was wrong when he said that the cankers or canker syphilis disappears spontaneously. It doesn't disappear spontaneously. But the thing is, the syphilis bacteria mutates rapidly. It's mutated to such an extent that the tests don't find secondary or tertiary syphilis because the protein markers.
The tests become negative, but they go into more advanced disease. After using the antibiotic.
Within market, it's nothing to do with homeopathy. It changes the shape. It's cystic to protect itself and suppress it over time, right? So all these cases of AIDS in Africa and everywhere, there must be a huge epidemic of syphilis, but they can't diagnose it. It only works in the early stages. This is from these mainstream researchers. So we have an epidemic of syphilis. It's just not diagnosable.
Yeah, because all the tests are negative. How do you, I guess you could do a brain biopsy, but I don't see too many people lining up for that test. Well, we're going to put a hole in your head and take out some brain tissue, and hopefully we don't injure anything useful.
Yeah, the Tokos makes a big thing of. He says a lot of the dementia is suppressed syphilis or mistreated or untreated syphilis. It's a big thing.
And syphilis is transmitted vertically, too, from generation to generation, right?
Yeah.
Scary.
By the way, talking about the painless chancre of syphilis, when I was a resident, I went to a lecture in Boston by Nicholas Fiumara, and he's like one of the world's leading experts in syphilis. And one of the things he said was that, yes, it's almost always painless, but the one exception is if you have a syphilitic chancre on a sphincter, like if it's on the anal sphincter, that's when it's exquisitely painful. So if you get a board examination that says, what is it? Yes, it is normally painless, but the exception is unless it's like on a fissure, or on a sphincter.
This was, I think for him, it was on the perineum, so it's close to the sphincter, but it was definitely painful. And that's why I was like, and even the infectious disease doctor, I mean, the other doctor was just, oh no, you have a positive VDRL, I'm giving you 2.4 million units of 10G, boom, in your butt right now. And the infectious disease doctor was more thoughtful. I'm like, well, this is unusual, which I thought it was too, because of talking to you, I know. But yeah, so maybe because it was close to the sphincter.
Yeah, so if it's right on a sphincter, supposedly that's the one exception. The other thing he does that is really, really clinically useful is that, like if you see somebody in a clinic and they have what you think of the primary chancre, and let's say it's not painful, and you're like, well, yeah, I bet you this person, this man or woman has syphilis. But the trouble is, you got to order the blood test, and it's going to take maybe, 2 or 3 or 4 days, and you might not even see the person back. So at least you have to treat them, and you want to be pretty sure clinically that the person has syphilis or not. So he had everybody in the lecture, everybody in the audience, they said, get your finger right now and feel the cartilage of your ear. You feel how hard, everybody do that. Feel the cartilage of your ear. Now it's firm, right? It's not like soft, it's palpable, very firm. That's what, if you put a glove on and you're palpating the chancre of primary syphilis, it feels firm. You can't see it, it looks just like a little erosion. but under the skin, subcutaneously, it feels just like cartilage. And the reason that's important is because if you think, well, I wonder if it's syphilis or if it's herpes, you know, how do I know whether I'm going to give them the penicillin shot or not, or in this case, you know, syphilis, whatever. And they said, just do that. And so we had a patient like that. And what had happened was, because most of the time, they have the open erosion, you know, and then also you have a glove on, you're feeling it, it feels just like cartilage. So you're like, yes, I know this is it. I'm going to give it a shot of penicillin. And then I'm going to wait a few days and it's positive. We had a guy that he had had sex with somebody and gave him syphilis. It was like about 3 to 4 weeks ago. So he said, I used to have a sore there, but the sore is completely healed, you know, and it was completely reepithelialized. And I was like, well, when you put a glove on and feel it, so even though the sore had just healed, it felt just like the cartilage thing. So I had all the residents and students put a glove on and feel it. I said, I did this, just like cartilage. So I went ahead and I gave him a shot of penicillin. Sure enough, like a week later, his RPR was positive. And of course, he never came back for follow-up. So if I hadn't gone to the lecture, if I didn't know that it felt like cartilage, he probably would be out there infecting a whole bunch of other people, you know, and not ever been treated.
If it's suppressed like that and the tests become negative, is the person still infectious? Can they still spread it to other people?
Yes. And, you know, like how many bacteria does it take to infect a person? 500.
It depends on susceptibility. Like people get exposed to, that's an interesting thing with like rabies. You get a bite from a rabid dog, only 50% of people develop rabies. It depends on susceptibility. If it was just the organism was so strong, it'd be 100%, but it's not 100%. It's 50%.
Well, secondary syphilis has mucus patches and mucus membrane, and they're extremely infectious. So if they haven't been treated, so just by kissing somebody, if they have the mucus patches in the mouth, and not even having sex, I'm just kissing them.
A few more cases. So cornea with a spot, like a white spot on the cornea. Asthma. Has to stand at an open window, stooped under the body, stooped upper body. Oh, I think it's understanding. Yeah, there it is. Here's the symptom. Respiration difficult, standing, ameliorate, cannabis, leaning forward, cannabis, by an open window. They want to stand, bend forward, by an open window, which is unusual. Most people want to sit bending forward. This they want to stand, bend forward, by an open window. That's peculiar. And that's from a case. Putrid discharge, we got about that. Gonorrhea, we know about that. Case after case after case. A girl, 8 years old, several smaller and larger nebular spots on the cornea of her eyes without previous inflammation. No change with euphrasia. Cannabis 34 times a day in water, improved 14 days. Mrs. So-and-so and her husband were mutes. On June 14th, of the woman she had been taken during the night with nervous excitement and raging delirium. Her mental aberration was of the most varied character, from silliness and laughter, to the wildest terror and the ugliest of fighting properties. Again, keen and shrewd in her raillery to those around her. She would describe a flushing from the womb to the chest and head when she would strike at her attendants, kick the clothes from their bed, and endeavor to escape and run, so they're running. Conversed with angels, refused to be touched. Her babe had to be weaned and kept from her to prevent her from crushing it in her fits of sudden spitefulness. When anyone coming in her way was in danger, as the black eyes around her gave evidence, which is reviews were always tried and failed. On returning from the society and while sitting at the bedside, was struck with a similitude of her symptoms to the effects of hashish, especially as there was suppression of urine in her case. I said, cannabis will cure her. It is her remedy. Sounds like Joel speaking there. I gave it, went home, and read the provings more closely and felt sure it was right. The next morning on visiting her, my first salutation was from a domestic. Doctor, you shall have a long feather in your cap. She is better. I continued the cannabis several days. 15th of cannabis I was given. On the 29th, she was discharged, cured, and has remained well since. Today, this is from 1865. Today, patient like that would be in the hospital on antipsychotropic drugs, which in the long run, because we know psychosis is, they say it's too much dopamine, causes hallucinations and stuff, so they give the dopamine blockers. But then the brain compensates and creates more dopamine. And what you do is you take an acute disease and you make it a chronic disease where you can never get off the meds. And there are studies showing that. So here, you can cure that with homeopathy if the person comes to you first. But no one knows to come to homeopathy first. They all go to the psychiatrist first, because that's what's advertised on TV. Here's a patient with a pyelonephritis, suffering severe pains in the kidneys, every few minutes passing bloody urine, writhing in agony, could not sit still upon the chair. I gave him Cann-s. If it didn't feel better, an hour or two come around, I'd review the case. The wife came in saying her husband was no better. I sent him cannabis. Medicine worked like a charm. Pain ceasing within 5 minutes after taking the first dose. Then you know you're on the right track. Right away the pain is decreasing. Boom. The urine soon clearing. The man was at once enabled to resume his labors. So essentially the pain went away first, and then the urine and probably the blood went away. Menorrhagia, so it's profuse flow, anemia, mental agitation, anxiety, cold hands and feet, violent uterine colic, pains in the extremities. Paroxysm of feeling heat and enlargement of the head. And pain as if the vertex opening and shutting, coming and going. In each paroxysm, the heat and enlargement came on first, then the pain in the vertex, then the heat and enlargement went, then the pain. All the time low-spirited. 1 dose of cannabis sativa, CM, Finke, rapidly removed it. Now, this is Barrage. Again, remember he proved the remedy. So when he prescribed, he's like, oh, obvious case, let's give him a CM. 1 dose, cured. Probably we wouldn't be so confident in prescribing cannabis. But he proved the remedy, he knew it.
So I don't remember a patient ever saying that opening and shutting.
I've never seen it either.
So what would be the modern language?
Are there cranial bones removed? I know there's a remedy that has opening and shutting in the nose.
This is the sensation.
Yeah, I don't know. I've seen where people feel like there's a ball rolling around their head, like a ball on the forehead, like the Steph Zegria, yeah. It's in the repertoire too.
In a few cases, the guys have used cannabis in the process of sativa on real patients. Did you tell them what they were doing, or did you say you're taking?
I mean, in the past, I used hospital camp. But now that it's more legal, same thing with opium, they used to write
Poppy.
But I mean, there might be some people who, for whatever conscientious reasons, would be philosophically opposed to taking something that's a legal drug. What if they said, well, I'm not going to, no.
I'm not going to try to fool them. We have very strict vegetarians, they don't want to take an animal. Talks about
So
there's nothing in there.
Here's the opening and shutting. You see there's 17 remedies that have it. Simcifica is another big one. Again, that's from Dr. Sain, so that's from the Materia Medica Pro project. Simcifica is one of the remedies we've done. Yeah, head opening and shutting. That's where it is in the repertoire. Cifalinum is there too. Interesting. And cannabis, cocculus. Those are the main remedies. So it's in the Materia Medica. It's known, but it's pretty peculiar and pretty strong for cannabis. Here's another case of a woman with burning, smarting parts, pain, swollen, frequent desire to urinate. So another case of probably gonorrhea. Here's phimosis, a drop of yellow glutinous matter at opening of the urethra. You notice it's not real profuse. He said, one of the authors said that if it's profuse, you think of like argentum nitricum. Profuse is swollen when walking. When walking, again, from the pain of the touch. Cataract, opacity of the cornea, and improved. A woman 60 had a capacity cornea for which received cannabis. The cornea cleared in a short time, but the sight did not improve. A cataract was detected. Cannabis was therefore continued with an occasional dose of high attenuation of sulfur and the cannabis appeared to lose its efficacy, the sight gradually returned as the cataract disappeared, and by the end of 3 months, the patient could read small print. We just had in the AIH, we had a webinar by a homeopathic ophthalmologist, Ed Condroit, and he talked about cataracts and using homeopathy. He said, what will happen with homeopathy, you find good remedies, you prescribe constitutionally, his vision will improve, but if you look at the cataract, it'll look the same. So something else is changing. It's not just the physical, what's in the cataract. He says he claims he's not seen a cataract reverse, although there are reports in literature, but you know, if it was from an ophthalmologist, I'd be more, you know, believing.
Isn't that interesting? So physically, they can still see the cataract, but yet their vision improves.
The vision improves.
That's fascinating.
Well, we see an eye doctor. I don't know if you've seen her, Zelensky.
Not years.
She puts on glasses. You know, she does the thing where she puts on. So I go to see her to get my glasses. She puts the thing on and she does the different things. Okay, well, how do you see the chart? How do you see the chart? How do you see the chart? Okay, we'll do different, you know, astigmatism things and lenses and prisms and. Okay, this looks pretty good. And I said, close your eyes now. So you close your eyes and she rings the bell. And you're supposed to touch the bell. And I swear to God, it sounds crazy, but when you have the right prescription, bam, you hit the bell. If you have the wrong prescription, the bell's here, you're like this. You can't find it. With your eyes closed. And then that's how she knows, that's how she confirms you have the right prescription.
What type of eye doctor is she?
Optometrist.
Wow.
Treats a lot of behaving disorder kids. And what I found was I was going to eye doctors and they were giving me stronger and stronger prescriptions and I felt like I was falling through a tunnel. And then finally I started doing this type of optometry where they, you know, she rings the bell and things like that. Dr. Sirota was before her. And he used to do other things. But you're fitting the prescription more for the whole range of vision. Because vision is not just, optometrists and ophthalmologists are just interested in reading a chart at 20 feet. It's just macular vision. That's it. But the prescription has to do with what about peripheral vision? Because there's a condition, you can have perfect macular vision and be blind. There's a disease like that, retinitis pigmentosa. You lose your peripheral vision, and these people are at high risk because all they can see, they have tunnel vision, all they can see. With glaucoma, you get this too. Tunnel vision, you can only see right here. So, you know, you walk out in the street, you think, oh, there's no cars. You get run over by a truck because you can only see right here. You don't have the peripheral vision. You need the peripheral vision. So somehow it's incorporating that and other clues too. Cerebellar, to be able to have the dexterity to touch the bell.
Who is your optometrist?
Deborah Zelinsky,
Where is she located?
Northbrook.
Please spell her last name.
Zelinski. Y, I think. Could be an I. It shows you how the body, it's like, it's not all like just mechanical, you know. There's more going on there in the brain than just mechanical stuff.
Synesthesia, as if it's a unusual disorder. All the senses are in there. You can't smell, but you taste what's that's common.
In the book, the guy who talks about plasticity, he talks about people that have lost a certain vision, a certain sense, and they're able to, like, they can make their tongue, like I put a sensor on the tongue, and the tongue then can see, and they get perception of the, you know, like for vision or something. It's amazing how the senses, you can actually.
Location.
Yeah.
The famous blind guy who, you know, who had the tumor of their eyes.
Retinoblastoma, yeah.
So what they theorize is that all the visual cortex is taken over by the next sensory area. So all the auditory senses use that part of the brain that the visual cortex is not. They can develop that sense. So this guy uses echolocation. He clicks his tongue. You can tell exactly where objects are. We got pictures of him driving heavy downtown traffic on his bicycle.
Without eyes.
Without eyes. Verified retinoblastoma when he was a little baby. And the official blind organization doesn't recognize him because he doesn't fit in as a usual disabled person.
Wow.
My friend Lee in Montreal, I'll be seeing him in a couple of weeks, and see Andre. He's blind. He's legally blind. He can't drive. At least I wouldn't go in a car with him because he can't see crap. And we joke about it. He's a great guy. He's amazing. His attitude is amazing. But he is amazing with taste. He's developed a sense of taste that he's an incredible chef, cook. He can make, like, he's a bread man, you know, he makes sourdough bread, and it's like amazing. He keeps perfecting it, but it's because he can't see. I think it allows him the other senses. And when we drive around Montreal, he picks me up sometimes when we go out to dinner or something. His wife drives because she's has sight, and he, blind, he can't see anything. He knows exactly where we are in Montreal. He'll say, okay, tell me, what street are you on? Okay, we're on Sherbrooke, we're passing Park. Okay, 2 more blocks, you have to turn left. She says, how do you know that? I just know. I just got it in my head. He's got a GPS in his head. It's amazing. I mean, we test him. It's like, oh, what do we do now? No, you have to go right now. How do you know that? You need to go right pretty soon. You need to go right because I know. He's got it in his head. It's amazing. So those other senses, you're right. When you lose one sense, the other senses, it's like the consciousness shifts to the other senses. It's amazing, the adaptability of the brain, the consciousness, I would say, because I don't think it's just brain. I think there's something more at play there than brain.
I don't like that point. How are we going to prescribe the cataract? Just because of cataract? Prescribe cannabis?
Well, opacity of the lens, opacity of the cornea first with a cataract. So if you have opacity of the cornea with a cataract, so it's a concomitant. That's it. Because see, if you look under opacity, that's an excellent question. Opacity of the cornea. I mean, cannabis is one of the main remedies. And left eye. See, it was left cornea. So it's just a local symptom. I mean, I wouldn't feel comfortable prescribing like that. But sometimes it's all you got. You got one or 2 legs of the stool. Sometimes you got to sit on it, and maybe you'll rock a little, but you might be okay, right? So that's it. That's why. I mean, that's why. And because it works for the one thing, it's like, okay, we'll try it for the other. This is what Andre does. Sometimes he'll have patients, and they'll take the initial case, and then they have a really peculiar remedy, a small remedy that you don't use much, Passiflora, something, and then he keeps using it. The patient keeps responding, treats everything with it. It's a chronic remedy for that patient. Just that we don't know that remedy is a chronic remedy, but it could be a chronic remedy. We keep using it. So same thing here. We tend to look at it in a limited way. We prescribe Polycrest a lot, but not everyone needs a Polycrest, and sometimes they need other things. And how do you get there? Well, this is a good example of that. This is actually a good case.
Hey, Jim, the doctor at the Lincoln, did she come up with that the ringing bell? Or did she come up with that, or did she get that from somebody else?
I forget, she told me the story once, and she said it's worked on everyone. I'll say something else first, and I'll come back to see if I can remember that. She said it worked on everyone except for one patient it didn't work on. He was an acoustic engineer. He did like acoustics for like music or something, and he had such precise hearing, and it didn't work on him. But everyone else it works on. And I swear to God, I don't believe it. It seems, oh, I'm fitting my glasses with my eyes closed. You think I'm stupid? I wasn't born yesterday. But it works. I mean, you have your eyes closed, and bam, when you have the right prescription there. If you have the wrong one, and my wife has come with me, and she says, yeah, it's obvious. When you have the wrong one, you're like, the thing's here, and you're like, over here. Like, you can't touch it. You can't. You just can't. Yeah. Yeah. He did this thing where he'd come up to you and he'd like, and you'd see how you perceive like him coming at you like this. He was a little more aggressive. She's a little more mellow. I don't remember. She told me the story once of how she came up with it, I think.
She had to go to a seminar or something.
No, she came up with this empirically. It was like some patient, something happened, and there was a bell, and she noticed that somehow she came up with this empirically. And then she's used it since, and she's written papers. She got a law passed in Illinois that kids should be screened with this bell thing by optometrists in Illinois. She got a law passed. Then she realized all of a sudden she'd have to train all the optometrists in Illinois so I don't know what happened with it, but no, she's amazing. She's amazing. She knows neuro whatever. She's like a neuroscientist now because of understanding how all these pathways mean. Her website, you look it up, Mind-Eye Connection. Postpartum hemorrhage, pain in the temple, opening and shutting. Her own voice seems to come at a distance. Everything's voice seems strange. Someone else speaking. Time seems prolonged. Faints. Didn't know she was. Things. The diagnosis of the remedy, the latest symptoms is always the most important. Voices seem to come from a distance. Cannabis. And the most peculiar symptom was pain in the head, as if opening and shutting. So I agree with you, Joel. I've never seen that symptom, but it's in the literature and it's in cured cases. This patient cured.
I don't know how a person would even describe that to you.
I don't know. This is a kind of a longer case. I won't go through it all because I don't have time. Cardiac asthma of 8-year standing, German woman, 27, cured by cannabis. After sleeping 2 or 3 hours, she'd be awakened by an agonizing sense of suffocation, causing her to rise and last from 5 to 20 minutes, with tumultuous beating of the heart. Okay. Strange urine, painful urination, with depression. The pain started from the meatus, it's tingling, stinging, especially itching, stinging. Started from the meatus and went backwards. That's another symptom, pain from the meatus going backward to the neck of the bladder. So we've seen lung problems, we've seen eye problems, we've seen genitourinary, we've seen kidney, we've seen mental. Idiopathic cure with cannabis. This is a case from 1988. Finally, we're up to the modern times. So that's what we do. The cases are from old times to modern times. And you see the progression of using the remedy. It's amazing. At first, just gonorrhea, and then other things came in. Since having HK24, since having smoked a hashy cigarette on October 10th, one time he got recurrent attacks of anxiety with tachycardia, nausea, vertigo, difficult respiration, and retrosternal pain. His character had changed. He withdrew from his friends, suffered from increased anxiety. This is similar to the patients that I've seen who've had bad reactions to marijuana. He has been treated in hospitals therefore, but no organic reason could be found. After consultation, I gave cannabis 200, whereupon he was free of complaints until today.
That would be more psychopathy.
No, it's not just going by, oh, he took hashish, so I'll give him cannabis. Look at these symptoms: tachycardia, nausea, vertigo, difficult respiration, retrosternal pain, anxiety. So it's kind of general, but it's like it fits the picture.
Have you
Without the use of cannabis, though, you probably couldn't prescribe it. So you know, oh, cannabis, oh, this generally fits. You give it, patient cures.
do you have experience using homeopathic cannabis for people who use it regularly?
Yes. It's mixed. That's it. These are all the references. These are all the references, all the case studies and such that, I mean, there's like pages of them. And these are all when people do these case studies. Where do we get the case studies from the old literature? It's because people go through an index, and then we have an index now with all these references, and then you look for, oh, cannabis. Look, you have 50 references. Let's look these up. And then you find, oh, this is a good case. I'll put it in, I'll put it in, I'll put it in. My experience, so I mentioned the patient with the UTI, can't walk with the legs apart. I mentioned my friend who died of a heart attack, probably related to cannabis. That's my thinking. I don't know the whole story, but I know he was a heavy user. I have one family where they both use it, and I actually gave them cannabis 200, and they were able to go from smoking 10 times a day to once a day. So it helped with the withdrawal. But then they went back because they wanted to. I don't know. And I think personally, I feel I made a mistake because I wrote them a medical marijuana, card.
Doesn't that expire?
I wonder. It has to be, to get the medical, for it to be valid, it has to be a diagnosis on, they have a list of so many diagnoses, but he had bumped his head on the door of the car and had like brain, like a traumatic brain injury after that, like headaches and this and that. So that's why, that was the reason I prescribed it. And he wanted it. And I look back and I don't think I did him a favor. But he and his mom were both able to cut down, but then they, I think it's psychologically dependent. I don't know about physically or physiologically. I mean, you guys maybe know more about that than I do, but from colleagues and friends and such. But I think I see people that do it, try and get them off of it, very difficult. And it's gotten, especially with the legalization, they've gotten very aggressive about, you don't know what you're talking about. It's good for you. This kid was like, I was trying to say, look, your mom might have cancer here, and it might be related to smoking all this pot for 25 years. You know, maybe she needs to, you know, take a hiatus for a while. No, it's good for treating cancer. Give her more. It's like, you know?
I think that's where the education comes in, that to treat cancer depends on the type of cancer and how they should be taking it, whether it's smoking or vapor or eating it.
And maybe you have to individualize. Maybe some patients would do better with it, with the CBD, or maybe more the THC. So who knows? Maybe some people would do better with it. They have poor appetite. They're on chemo. But maybe some people would do worse with it, and you need to remove it. You have to individualize, I think. To just say, oh no, it's good for cancer. I think, unfortunately, in natural medicine, this whole cannabis thing is becoming the new, like I said, Botox. You know, there's no studies, but it's good for everything. I read a Time magazine article. I wanted to spit. I was so mad. Because here they are talking about how great Botox is. It's used for all these indications, and there's no studies. But now the company, they're making billions of dollars, and oh, they're doing a few studies, and it's so great. And yeah, there's these few patients who are getting injured and are totally disabled because of it, and they're suing. But it's such a great thing. It's the next great thing. I'm like, and they always trash homeopathy. It's like, there's no science to what you're doing. You could have chicken poop and give it to people, and a certain group of people will get better. Doesn't mean it's the next great treatment, but Botox, because it's lucrative practice to inject it. Some dermatologists make a living injecting Botox, right?
Well, they're advertising it with the side effects.
Yeah.
Now
And some people are very disabled because of it. Now, not to say Botox can be a useful medication. We have friends who use it for other indications. It can be a useful thing, but it's become like a panacea. And I think the same thing is happening with cannabis.
That's because they don't have anything else. They're throwing stuff at people, and they're hoping that, you know, people don't get discouraged with what you know, they're using it for headaches. That's a big one. What does medical science have for headaches?
I have a patient, he's a Vietnam vet. He hated his mom, so he went to Vietnam, and he loved killing people. I mean, he got a rush out of it. I mean, he was good at it too. And I mean, this guy, you wouldn't want to meet this guy in a dark alley because they wouldn't find the body, you know? This kind of guy. He's changed now, he's totally different. But I mean, he liked, you know, and there were people, he's interesting, he was telling me there are times, because there are certain people that are good at that, and there are certain people out there, they would always find that there are certain people, they get in that situation where war, where bullets are flying, and they'd freak out so bad, they'd shoot themselves in the foot. And they'd always be sure, he'd be like, oh, yeah, that guy, don't give him a silver heart. This is self-inflicted. They made sure that that person, maybe he got a discharge or whatever, but he got chronic headaches, he's getting Botox. They went to like some place where the Viet Cong were or whatever, and they had just been there, and they were looking, and the sergeant kept saying, go push, push. And he was like, I don't know, I don't feel good about this, because you get to develop a sixth sense after a while. And then there was just like hell, like fire, and then there was an explosion. And ever since that explosion, he's had migraines, and they're giving him Botox. Still trying to find a remedy for him. I've tried a few, not too many. But the thing about Botox, he has to go back every 2-3 months to get another shot. It's not a permanent effect. It's suppressive. It helps the symptoms, but it's not a permanent cure.
He had been exposed to explosions prior.
But this was really close. It's like he knows. It's like my migraines every day, all the time. Bam, explosion. He got a bullet wound. Ever since that moment, that's when my headache started. I'm actually thinking about giving him guanine. We'll see. Guanine. I don't know. We'll see. What's guanine?
Nitroglycerin.
Yeah. And we'll see. It's a big remedy for headaches. So we'll see. Have to see if the headaches fit.
But isn't it kind of clear what type of headache it would be? Or are you saying that the migraine is just a common?
I don't know. I don't remember his whole case. I see a lot of patients, but I know I've tried Spigili on him. I've tried a nature mirror because he had, and in this firefight, there were women and children that he killed, and he got like a silver star for it. He feels like horrible. It's like this is what I had to do. It's like You kill them or you get killed. Or they pick up a gun and they shoot one of your buddies. What are you going to do? Can you imagine being in a situation like that? This is why war is crazy. Anyone who thinks war is a good thing, they're nuts, because you get into the actual fighting of it, and it's like, it's chaos. It's people that come back from that are never the same. Look at people coming back from Vietnam. I don't know any of them who are normal. And Agent Orange and everything else that they were exposed to, you know, in war, these things that people do, they think are such a good thing.
I'm sorry.